The sound of blaster fire echoed in the air, sharp and fast as chaos erupted around the protagonist. He had always thought of himself as someone who could remain calm under pressure, but this was unlike anything he had ever faced. The human soldier, Lieutenant Marcus Voss, found himself in the middle of a battle he hadn't planned for. The peace negotiations on the planet Virius had taken an unexpected turn. What was supposed to be a civil discussion between the planets, ruling factions had quickly devolved into violence. His role as a neutral observer had become more complicated by the minute. The leaders of the various factions had barely settled into their chairs before the weapons had started to fire. Now it was a fight for survival. Marcus ducked behind a stone pillar, the heat from the blaster shots sending small cracks into the solid surface beside him. His hand gripped his sidearm tightly as he scanned the area. He could see several armed figures, aliens of various shapes and sizes, moving with precision. But it wasn't the battle around him that caught his attention. It was the figure lying motionless on the ground. A female alien, unconscious and bleeding, lay in the open, dangerously exposed to enemy fire. Her long, dark hair lay like a tangled mess against the rough stone of the floor. She was dressed in a strange silvery outfit, her face obscured by a mask. Marcus didn't hesitate. His instincts kicked in as he dashed toward her, dodging incoming fire. With every step, the battle around him seemed to fade. His focus was solely on her now. Reaching her side, Marcus knelt down, his eyes quickly scanning her wounds. The blood, dark and thick, stained the ground beneath her, and her breathing came in shallow, labored gasps. He could tell by the way her chest heaved that time was running out. "Hey," Marcus said, his voice steady but urgent. "Stay with me. I'm getting you out of here." He carefully checked her pulse, his fingers brushing over her delicate skin. She was still alive, but just barely. He noticed the intricate patterns on the edges of her mask, suggesting she was more important than she appeared. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, just enough for Marcus to meet her gaze. Her eyes, unlike any he had seen before, were a strange shade of violet glowing faintly under the dim lights of the battlefield. There was something almost otherworldly about her. She blinked slowly, then weakly whispered, "Remove my mask, and you'll discover who I truly am." Marcus froze, staring down at her. The request, faint though it was, echoed in his mind. He had no idea who she was or why she had said that, but her words held an undeniable weight. It wasn't just the desperation in her voice. There was something far deeper, something he couldn't quite place. "Why?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why now?" Her lips parted, but the only sound she made was a faint cough. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. He had no time to waste. He had to make a decision. Despite the uncertainty, Marcus felt an inexplicable pull, a need to honor her request. There was something in the way she looked at him, something that made him believe that removing her mask would reveal not just her identity, but perhaps a much larger truth that was critical to the war, one he could not ignore. With his heart racing, Marcus gently reached up, his fingers brushing against the cold surface of the mask. The alien woman let out a shallow breath as if preparing herself for what was to come. Carefully, Marcus removed the mask, exposing the delicate features of her face. What he saw took his breath away. Beneath the mask, her skin was pale and smooth, almost glowing in the dim light. She had the appearance of a being from another world, with subtle markings along her jawline that seemed to shimmer faintly as though alive. Her face, though serene in its beauty, also carried an unmistakable air of nobility. Her hair, dark as midnight, framed her face with a gentle wave. She was unlike anything Marcus had ever encountered, and for the first time since he had arrived on Virius, he felt out of his depth. The woman's eyes, still locked with his, were filled with a strange sadness, as though they carried the weight of an entire universe. The moment felt surreal. He didn't understand it yet. But he knew that this woman, whoever she was not just another casualty of war. There was something important about her, something that could change everything. Her hand, trembling, reached up toward his face, and Marcus instinctively leaned closer. I can't, I can't die without telling you the truth, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I am the heir, the last of my line, and I am not what you think I am. I can help you. I can end this war, but only if you trust me. Before Marcus could respond, her hand fell back to the ground, and her eyes slowly closed. The battle raged around him, but for a moment everything stopped. Marcus was left kneeling beside her, holding her fragile body, the weight of her words pressing down on him. He had just made a choice that would change everything. But what was the truth behind her mysterious claim? And what did it mean for the future of the galaxy? The seconds ticked by like hours. Marcus sat there frozen, still holding the woman in his arms. Her breathing had slowed and her body felt cold against him. The echo of her words, I am the heir, the last of my line, repeated in his mind over and over, each time carrying more weight. She had spoken of something grander, something hidden beneath the surface. His mind raced as he thought of his mission on Virius. As a soldier, Marcus had been trained to keep his emotions in check, but this situation was different. This wasn't just another conflict, another skirmish between factions. This was something bigger, something he hadn't expected. A woman who had been bleeding in his arms, who had barely survived an attack, had revealed herself to be far more than he could ever have imagined. The question was now, what was he supposed to do with this new information? The distant sounds of battle were still roaring in the background, and the hiss of blaster fire cracked through the air. But Marcus couldn't think of the fight right now. He had to think of her. He needed to act quickly, to decide what came next. The woman's words echoed again in his mind. Remove my mask, and you'll discover who I truly am. He had done what she asked, and yet still the meaning was unclear. Who was she really, Marcus wondered? A high-ranking leader? The last of a royal bloodline? Her strange words didn't make sense to him. She was no ordinary alien, that much was certain. But to be the last of her line, did that mean she was important? Was she the key to peace or the beginning of war? The gravity of what she had said weighed heavily on his thoughts. But Marcus wasn't alone in this battle. The alien factions on Virius had been at odds for decades, each side believing they were fighting for justice. He, a human soldier, had been sent as a neutral observer to keep things from escalating. Now the situation had changed entirely. The woman stirred slightly in his arms, and Marcus immediately leaned closer. She had come back to her senses, but her eyes were still glazed, her body weak. She glanced up at him, and for a moment their eyes locked. There was something deep in her gaze, something that pulled at Marcus in a way he couldn't explain. You're awake, Marcus said softly, his voice filled with relief. Barely, she whispered, her voice weak but steady. I should be dead by now. But you... Marcus wasn't sure how to respond. Her last words had been filled with both gratitude and a strange sense of urgency. She seemed to be trying to say something important, but her strength was failing her. Her head fell back and she closed her eyes. No, Marcus said, his grip tightening. Stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open again, and she met his gaze, her lips curling into a faint smile. Despite her pain, she still managed to find some strength to look at him, her voice barely above a whisper. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. You may think this is just a war, a conflict between species, but it's more than that. I am not what I appear to be. Her words made Marcus shiver. She spoke with the kind of quiet authority that made him believe every word. He had seen wars before, on Earth, on distant colonies, but he had never faced anything like this. He wasn't sure who she was, but he felt an unspoken bond between them, one that made him want to protect her no matter the cost. Tell me who you are, Marcus asked, his voice low. And why does it matter? Her eyes darted around, scanning their surroundings, before she closed her eyes again. It matters because, if I die here, the truth will never come to light. My people will destroy themselves and the galaxy will be plunged into chaos. I need you to trust me. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Trust. It was a word he had heard many times before in his training, but it had always been a carefully measured thing earned over time. Yet here he was, holding a stranger in his arms, someone who had just told him she was more than she appeared, someone who seemed to hold the future of entire factions in her hands. The weight of her words pressed down on him. But Marcus knew one thing: he had to act. He couldn't sit idly by and let her die, not after everything she had just shared with him. The battle outside was still ongoing, but he wasn't going to let her die on this battlefield, not like this. Stay with me, he repeated, looking down at her. You're not dying today. I'll get you out of here. We'll figure this out together. A weak smile flickered across her face, but she nodded, though it was clear that her strength was rapidly fading. Marcus scanned the area, looking for any signs of escape. The conflict around them was escalating, and he knew they didn't have much time. Her eyes fluttered again. There is a place, a sanctuary. My people will come for me. They'll stop the war, but they need my bloodline to unite them. Your bloodline? Marcus repeated, still not fully understanding. What does that mean? She closed her eyes for a moment, exhausted. You'll understand soon enough. But first, you have to keep me alive. Marcus didn't know what it meant. He didn't understand the full weight of her words, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let her die. Not now. Not when she might hold the key to ending this war and bringing peace to the galaxy. The world around Marcus seemed to blur as the weight of the woman's words pressed on him. Her pale face lay against the stone floor, her breathing shallow. His mind raced. She had just revealed that she was not who she appeared to be. She was a royal heir, the last of her bloodline. What did that mean for him? For the war? For peace? She had said she could help end the war. But could he trust her? His instincts told him to be cautious, but something in her eyes made him want to believe her, to protect her. The idea of peace seemed impossible, but what if it wasn't? The battle outside still raged, but the distant explosions now felt like they belonged to another world. Marcus focused solely on the woman lying in his arms. Her survival mattered, more than anything else. He couldn't let her die, not when the future of an entire galaxy seemed to hang in the balance. The woman's voice interrupted his thoughts, soft and weak, but still clear enough to hear. My name is Alara, she whispered. I am the last of the Aranthar. My people. We were once rulers of a great empire, the ones who kept balance in the galaxy. Marcus leaned in, trying to hear every word, his mind grasping for understanding. The Aranthar, he repeated, confused. He had never heard of such a people. Who are they? And why does it matter? Alara's eyes fluttered open, and for a brief moment her violet gaze locked with his. We were betrayed, she said, her voice barely more than a whisper. By our own people. They believed that peace would bring weakness, and so they killed us one by one. I was hidden away to keep the bloodline alive, but now they're coming for me. Marcus's heart pounded. The weight of what she was saying was too much to process in one moment. Betrayed by her own people? A royal bloodline, hidden away for survival? These were not just words, they were pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known existed. Why are they after you? Marcus asked, trying to make sense of it all. Ilara's lips trembled, her hand reaching weakly for his. Because I am the last one left, the only one who can unite them. They need me to bring them together, to reignite the old ways. But my death, it would mean the end of our legacy. And war would follow. My people, they'll fight to the death for power. It will spread across the galaxy. Marcus could see the pain in her eyes as she spoke. Her words were heavy with a truth that seemed impossible to believe. She wasn't just a leader. She was the last hope for peace, or the cause of its destruction. But you said you could stop it, Marcus said. You can bring peace? Alara nodded, her eyes filled with determination despite her weakness. Yes, but only if you help me. You are the one I need. The one who can protect me from those who would see me fall. The human soldier was confused. How could he, a simple soldier, be the key to anything so large? He was just one man. But there was something about Elara, something in her eyes, in her words, that made him feel as if he had been brought to this place for a reason. He couldn't let her die, not after hearing what she had said. I will help you, Marcus said, his voice firm. I don't fully understand what this means yet, but I'll do whatever it takes to keep you alive. I'll protect you. Elara's face softened as she gave him a faint smile, the first real smile he had seen from her since they met. You don't know what this will mean for you, but thank you. If we survive this, you will know. My people will come and they will recognize you for what you've done. Marcus shook his head, confused. Your people? I'm just a soldier. I don't belong in this. You will, she said softly, her voice filled with certainty. You already do. The sound of footsteps drew his attention, and Marcus quickly scanned the area. The enemy would be closing in on them soon. He had to move quickly. Elara's condition was worsening. Blood continued to drip from her side, staining her clothes. Her body was growing weaker with every breath she took. He had to get her to safety, before it was too late. We need to move, Marcus said, rising to his feet and gently lifting her into his arms. I'll get you out of here. I don't care what it takes. Her hand clutched his shirt, her grip weak but firm. You don't know the dangers. If my enemies find me, then they will stop at nothing. Marcus tightened his hold on her, ignoring the fear that gnawed at him. We'll figure it out. You're not dying today, Elara. Not while I'm still breathing. As he carried her away from the battle, his mind raced. Elara's story seemed too big to comprehend. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and it all seemed to rest on her shoulders. But Marcus had a responsibility now, not just as a soldier, but as a protector. And he would do whatever it took to ensure her survival. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he felt as though he was standing on the edge of something vast, something important. The weight of his choices had never been so clear. They had to survive. For the galaxy, for the future, for peace. The distant echoes of battle had faded as Marcus carried Elara through the narrow alleyways of the ruined city. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke and burning debris, a reminder of the violence that had erupted just hours earlier. But now, all Marcus could focus on was Elara. Her condition had worsened, her breathing shallow and ragged, her pulse weak against his fingers. The woman in his arms, this alien leader, this heir to a long-forgotten bloodline, was slipping away with each passing moment. He couldn't let her die. Not like this. Not when she might be the only hope for peace between their peoples. Marcus didn't know where they were going. He didn't have a plan, but he couldn't stand by and let her die in the middle of a battlefield. He had to find a safe place. Somewhere hidden, somewhere the enemies chasing her couldn't reach. He hurried through the streets, his heart pounding in his chest. Elara's head rested against his shoulder, her body limp and unresponsive, but her grip on his arm remained steady. She wasn't gone yet, and he refused to let her go. You're going to be okay, Marcus whispered, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. Elara didn't respond, her breath a quiet rasp, but Marcus noticed a slight shift in her posture, a subtle movement that told him she was still with him. Hold on, he urged. Just hold on. He reached a small, deserted building at the end of the street, its walls crumbling and its windows shattered from the earlier conflict. He pushed through the broken door, finding a dark room inside. There was no time to find anything better. It would have to do. He laid Elara gently on the floor, careful not to jar her injured body. Marcus took a deep breath and tried to steady his racing mind. He had to think. He had to act. The woman in front of him wasn't just a casualty of war. She was the key to something much larger. The thought of her being the last of her bloodline, the one who could unite the fractured factions of her people, was something he couldn't ignore. She had asked for his help, trusted him in a way that no one else ever had, and he wasn't going to fail her. His fingers moved swiftly as he examined her wounds. Her side was bleeding heavily, the blood staining her clothes. He didn't have medical supplies, he was just a soldier after all, but he had basic field training. He ripped a strip of fabric from his shirt and tied it around her wound, trying to staunch the flow of blood. She flinched at the pressure but didn't wake. "Stay with me, Alara," Marcus said softly, his voice filled with a determination he hadn't known he had. He couldn't afford to lose her. Not now. Not after everything she had shared with him. A faint groan escaped her lips, and her eyes flickered open. She looked up at him, her violet eyes cloudy with pain. I didn't think..." Her voice trailed off, weak and exhausted. Marcus leaned closer, trying to comfort her. "You didn't think what?" "I didn't think anyone would care enough to help me," Alara whispered. "I thought I was alone in this, but you are different." Her words hit Marcus like a physical blow. The vulnerability in her voice was something he hadn't expected. She had been so strong, so determined when she spoke about her bloodline, her people. But now, in her weakened state, she sounded human, in need of help, in need of someone to protect her. Marcus had always seen himself as a protector. He had trained for years to keep others safe, to defend his people. But this, protecting an alien woman who could change the fate of an entire galaxy, was something new. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't let her down. "You're not alone, Marcus," said, his voice firm. "I'm here, Alara. I won't leave you." She smiled faintly, her eyes softening as if she found comfort in his words. "You're different, from the others," she said, her voice growing quieter with each word. "You're not like the others who came before you, the ones who only saw me as a weapon or a tool." Marcus shook his head, confused. "I don't understand. Why would anyone treat you like that?" Alara's eyes closed for a moment, and when they opened again, there was a depth to them that Marcus hadn't seen before. "Because of who I am, because of what I represent. The Aranthar were once the rulers of the galaxy, but we were betrayed by those who feared our power. My people, they wanted peace, but others wanted control. They killed us, one by one. And now they want to finish what they started." Marcus sat back, his mind spinning. Alara had said she was the key to uniting her people, but what if that wasn't the only thing she could do? What if her bloodline, her legacy, was the reason others feared her so much? Before he could ask another question, Alara's body stiffened slightly. Her breathing grew more labored, her hand clutching his arm with the last of her strength. "Please," she whispered, barely audible. "Don't let them take me." Marcus nodded, his heart tightening with the weight of her plea. He wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to let her die. Not when she had so much to give. "We'll get you to safety," he promised. "I'll protect you." And with that promise, he knew that his life had changed forever. They were no longer just two strangers thrown together by chance. They were partners in something bigger. Partners in a fight for survival, and for a future neither of them could yet fully understand. Marcus had been on many missions in his life, faced countless battles, and made decisions that affected the lives of many, but nothing had prepared him for the situation he found himself in now. He had never expected to be here, crouched down beside an alien woman who claimed to be the last of a powerful bloodline, her future, and the future of the galaxy, hinging on his ability to protect her. Alara was growing weaker by the hour. The makeshift bandage around her wound, though it helped slow the bleeding, wasn't enough. She had lost too much blood, and Marcus knew they couldn't stay here for long. They had to keep moving, find a safer place. But each moment seemed to bring them closer to the edge. Marcus adjusted his grip, lifting her slightly, trying to keep her steady. She looked up at him, her violet eyes dull with exhaustion, but there was a fire still burning in them. A fire that wouldn't go out. "I know you're doing everything you can," she whispered, her voice fragile, "but we don't have much time. The people hunting me, they won't stop until I'm dead. And if they find us—" Marcus interrupted, his voice firm. "We won't let them find us." Alara's lips curled into a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She knew just as well as he did that they were running out of time. The sounds of the battle outside had faded, but they weren't safe yet. The enemy forces would be looking for her, and Marcus had no doubt that the danger they faced was far from over. She closed her eyes for a moment, and Marcus couldn't help but feel a pang of worry. The night had fallen quietly, but the war was far from over. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gripped him, even as he found temporary shelter for Alara in an abandoned building. The war outside raged on, but in the small room they had found, there was a tense silence, broken only by Alara's labored breathing, and the occasional sound of distant explosions. The weight of Alara's words kept circling in his mind. The last of the Aranthar bloodline. The key to peace or destruction. It seemed almost impossible to comprehend. His mind kept replaying the things she had told him. How her people, the Aranthar, had once ruled the galaxy, but were betrayed, and how she was the only one left to unite them. But the more he thought about it, the more it made sense. If she was truly the last of her kind, then she held power. Power that could change everything. Alara was still unconscious, her body growing colder by the hour. Marcus had tried to stabilize her as best as he could, but without proper medical supplies, it was a losing battle. He had to find a way to get her to safety, to a place where she could be healed. If she was indeed as important as she said, he needed to protect her at all costs. He knelt by her side, checking her pulse again. It was weak but steady. The fear that gripped him every time he checked was hard to shake. What if it wasn't enough? What if he couldn't save her? He clenched his fists. He had to. He couldn't let her die here. Not when she could be the one to bring an end to this war. He had to keep her alive. Suddenly, Alara stirred. Marcus snapped his gaze to her, holding his breath. Slowly, her eyes opened, still heavy with exhaustion. They locked onto him for a moment, and he could see the same fire in her gaze that he had seen earlier, but now it seemed weaker, dimmed by the pain she was in. "You're still here?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Marcus nodded. "Of course I'm still here. I told you I'm not going to let you die." Alara managed a weak smile, though it was tinged with sadness. I don't think you understand what this means, Marcus." Marcus frowned, sitting closer to her. "What do you mean?" She took a shallow breath, as though gathering the strength to explain. "It's not just about my bloodline or my people. It's about everything, the future of the galaxy. You see, if I die, the Aranthar will be lost forever, and my enemies, those who want to claim my power, will use it to spread war. They've already begun. I'm the only one who can stop them." Marcus's heart tightened in his chest. She wasn't just a leader. She was the last hope for a galaxy torn by conflict. The gravity of her words hit him harder than ever. It wasn't just her life at stake. It was the fate of everyone in the galaxy. He shook his head. "Then we need to get you out of here. We need to find help." Alara closed her eyes again, her face contorted in pain. "There is no help. Not for me. There's no safe place, not anymore." Marcus's breath caught in his throat. What did she mean? Was there no hope at all? "Don't say that," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I promised you that I'd protect you. I don't care. What it takes, we'll get you to safety." She opened her eyes again, locking her gaze with his. There was something about her stare, something that made him feel like she was seeing straight through him, understanding him in a way no one ever had. "You're different," Alara whispered, almost as if to herself. The others, they wanted power. They wanted control. But you don't want anything from me. You only want to help. You don't know what that means to me." Marcus looked down at her, unsure of how to respond. He had never considered the idea of power or control in the same way that others did. He was a soldier. His job was to protect. But protecting Elara felt different. It felt like it was more than just a mission. It felt personal. "I'll protect you," he repeated, his voice firm. "No one else will take you from me." She nodded slowly, a faint glimmer of trust in her eyes. "I know, and that gives me hope." For the first time since they had met, Marcus felt a shift within himself. He had always been taught to follow orders, to think logically and pragmatically. But now, he realized something. His duty was no longer just about following orders. It was about doing what was right. And protecting Elara, protecting the hope she represented, was right. "You don't have to do this alone," Marcus said, his resolve growing stronger. "I'll stay with you. I'll fight with you, whatever it takes." Elara's eyes softened, her exhaustion overwhelming her, but there was a faint smile on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. "Maybe for the first time I'm not truly alone." Marcus took her hand gently in his, feeling the weight of the promise he had made. The galaxy was falling apart around them, but he wasn't going to let it break them. They would fight and they would survive, because together they had a chance at something more. It wasn't just about saving one life anymore. It was about saving everyone. The night stretched on, and the silence in the small room grew heavy. Marcus sat beside Elara, his gaze never leaving her. She had been unconscious for hours, her condition still critical, but there was a new determination in his heart. Elara was the key to peace, and he couldn't lose her. Not now. Not after everything they had been through. The distant rumble of battle could still be heard, though it seemed far away now. They were hidden in the shadows of this forgotten building, but Marcus knew they couldn't stay here forever. Elara's enemies were relentless, and time was running out. He had promised her that he would protect her, and he wasn't going to break that promise. He had never felt this responsibility before, this need to protect someone with everything he had. But Elara was no ordinary woman. She was the last of a bloodline that held the power to unite her people and change the course of history. If she died, the war would continue, and millions would suffer. If she lived, there was a chance. A real chance. That peace could be restored. Marcus stood up and paced the room, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. He had to make a choice, and the weight of it pressed down on him. He couldn't do this alone. He needed help. But who could he trust? The galaxy was full of enemies, factions that would do anything to take Elara for themselves. The people who hunted her wouldn't stop until they had her, and they wouldn't care who they destroyed in the process. Elara's voice broke through his thoughts, soft and weak, but strong enough to grab his attention. "Marcus." He immediately moved to her side, kneeling beside her once again. "I'm here," he said, his voice gentle. "I'm not going anywhere." She looked up at him, her violet eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and pain. "You've done so much for me, already. You've kept your promise." "I'll keep it until the end," he replied, his voice firm. "But you need to stay strong. We can't give up now. We're close to finding a way out of this." Elara's lips parted, her breathing shallow. "I don't know how much time I have left, but you need to understand, Marcus. My enemies are not just hunting me. They're hunting everything I stand for. If they catch me, they will destroy any hope for peace." Marcus shook his head. "We're not going to let that happen." She closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them again, there was a strange calmness in her gaze. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you earlier." "What is it?" Marcus asked, his voice filled with concern. Elara's hand reached out, her fingers trembling as they touched his arm. "You're more than just my protector, Marcus. You have a part to play in this too. You were chosen to help me, not by fate, but by choice." Marcus was taken aback. "What do you mean?" Elara smiled weakly. My people believed in the power of unity. That peace could only be achieved through the union of two strong forces, my bloodline and your humanity. Humanity? Marcus repeated, confused. How does that make sense? The Aranthar are powerful, but they have lost sight of what truly matters. They have forgotten what it means to fight for others, to put the greater good above all else. You, Marcus, are the embodiment of that strength. You have the heart of a leader, someone who sees beyond the battlefield. Marcus stared at her, his heart pounding in his chest. He had always considered himself just another soldier, just another man following orders. He had never thought of himself as something greater. But now, hearing Alara speak to him like this, he began to see himself in a new light. Maybe he wasn't just part of this story. Maybe he was the key to it. You are my last hope, Alara whispered. You don't have to do this alone. You have a choice, Marcus. You can walk away from all of this. Leave the galaxy and forget about the war. Or you can stand by my side and help me bring the peace we've all been fighting for. The decision hung in the air, heavy and almost unbearable. Marcus had always known that life as a soldier was filled with difficult choices, but this was something else entirely. He wasn't just deciding whether to fight or to walk away. He was deciding the fate of an entire galaxy, the future of thousands, maybe millions of lives. But as he looked at Alara lying before him, still holding on to life by a thread, he knew what he had to do. He wasn't just fighting for a cause. He was fighting for something bigger, something that mattered more than any mission he had ever been given. Marcus took a deep breath and looked down at Alara, his eyes filled with resolve. I choose to stay, he said, his voice steady. I choose to fight with you. We'll bring peace together, Alara, no matter the cost. Alara's face softened, her smile faint but full of warmth. Thank you, Marcus. You have no idea what this means. Together we can end this. Together we can change everything. Marcus held her hand tightly, his resolve stronger than ever. The road ahead would be dangerous, filled with unknowns and enemies. But he knew he wasn't walking it alone anymore. He had made his choice. He had chosen to stand with her, and whatever came next, they would face it together.